Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first episode of Ace Alliance Insights, where together with my amazing guests, we discuss all things iGaming, ranging from career tips through innovations, regulations, success stories, and more. And this episode is brought to you by eSIMatic, an app that offers affordable eSIM data plans for seamless connectivity. My name is Magda. I am the CMO of Ace Alliance. And for those of you who are new here, Ace Alliance is all about building authority, fostering meaningful connections, and driving insightful conversations within the iGaming industry. Now, before I entered the iGaming industry, I would hear a lot about it from my husband, who's also connected with iGaming. And one of the names I've been hearing quite often is Cordelia Morgan Cooper. And today I am joined by the lovely Cordelia, and we're going to dive into how to develop your career in iGaming, especially if, like us, you started out in a completely different industry. Cordelia is an accomplished HR professional with an incredible career journey. She now runs her own HR and recruitment consultancy, CMC Consulting. Cordelia, welcome. It's great to have you here with us. How are you?
Magda, thank you so much. I'm great. And a big hello from sunny Thailand. Really happy to be joining you. And thank you so much for giving me the space and the time today to chat all things kind of HR and people related.
Of course. I must say I'm a little bit jealous about Thailand, but we're going to let it pass.
But look, you're in lovely Malta, so I don't think you can complain either.
It's not that bad either. Cordelia, today we are going to touch on a topic that is well known to both of us, which is entering the iGaming industry. And before this interview, we spoke very briefly about how we both ended up here. And I'd love for you to share your story. So please tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and the journey that led you to where you are right now.
Sure. So I think like most people, I kind of fell into the world of iGaming, and I think that that's what makes the industry so exciting. So I started my recruitment career 12 years ago. I worked for the world's largest recruitment company in the UK, Reed, and I progressed from graduate through to branch manager. And then on a cold, wet, very rainy day, I saw an advert for a business manager, country manager role in Malta. I didn't know at the time where Malta was, but I saw the view and thought it looked amazing and thought, you know what, maybe that's something I could do. To be honest, the role was quite a lot above what I had when it came to skill set wise, but I really had the passion and the determination to succeed. I actually didn't even tell my parents until I got through to the final stage because I was so sure that I wasn't going to get the role. Went to the interview. It was me versus one gentleman who had a Maltese wife. So I already was sure it's not me. I went into the meeting as relaxed as I could be. And then the next day I was in Victoria Station buying a coffee in Starbucks, and my whole life changed. They made me the offer, and 6 weeks later I relocated to Malta. I then stayed with that company for a year. So I was still doing agency recruitment, and that was my first kind of insight into the world of iGaming. We had a small iGaming vertical, but I still focused very much on kind of senior finance and accountancy, which had been my real love. And that had been something that I had found a lot of success in the UK. I then actually decided to move out of agency recruitment. I did a year's work experience in an online dating business. I realized that really that wasn't an industry that was so affiliated with kind of my interests and the way that I like to work. But I had seen that there was a business in Malta that I had loved from the outside, Catena Media. It was a company that a lot of people had aspired to want to work for. I saw that they had an opening, and I'm not afraid to say that, or ashamed to say that I hounded their recruitment manager, head of HR, weekly to try and get them to meet with me. And when the role came up, they said, look, yes, Cordelia, we'll meet you. And in the end, then that started my iGaming career. So I was with them for 3 years as their recruitment manager. And we successfully hired over 500 people to join the business in 3 years, which is something I'm incredibly proud of. So that was kind of the start of my iGaming career. I then moved to another affiliate as their head of people for a year. And then with the change in business direction, I then decided in April of 2022 that I would set up on my own. I gave myself 6 months. Let's see what might happen. Let's give it a try. And yeah, 2.5 years later, I haven't looked back once. It's been, I think, the making of me in the person that I am. But I think one of the real lessons that I've learned, and I would love to say to anybody starting out their career or anyone who's had a few knocks, when one door opens, it means another door is going to open. And you just have to be okay sometimes with the fact that maybe your career isn't necessarily going in the direction you expected, but actually where you're going is so much more exciting and so much more invigorating.
I agree 100%. And even from my personal experience, when I was closing one door, I was never really fully closing doors. I don't want to be burning bridges. I try to always enter relationships, professional relationships on a, good level. And it always paid off. And whenever I was facing a new opportunity, it turned out to be even better than the previous one. So yeah, and I really love your story, on relocating, especially now in the times where everything is remote. You don't really think about relocating anymore, and let alone to a country you've never heard of. This is really fascinating. I was wondering, Cordelia, was there a defining moment or project in those early years that's really confirmed that iGaming was the right path for you?
Yeah. So if I think into my tenure at Catena, we were about 1.5 years in, and the SEO teams needed to have a whole new team built. We managed to build a new team in around 35 days, and we're talking kind of 10 plus people. And that really showed me that with like resilience, hard work, and just sheer perseverance, that we could get where we needed to. It also showed me that sometimes you might get a few no's, but it's the yeses that really count. And I think that that's what I took with me throughout my recruitment career. And I think in recruitment, you have to be persistent, you have to be resilient, and you have to be able to take the no's. But I think that that's also translatable into any industry that people work in. Life and work is not always easy. And sometimes when we really feel like we should get a yes, whether it's that promotion, whether it's the next step, whether it's the next pay rise, maybe that business says, look, you're not actually ready for it now. That makes us stronger. And I think that sometimes that can be a really hard pill to swallow, that actually maybe we're not ready for that next step, but it's actually that perseverance that makes us better at work and more successful in business.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. I love it. And building a team in 35 days, that should be on top of your portfolio.
Yeah, it's one of my proudest achievements. I achieved it with an amazing team. We knew that we had time against us, but we also knew that this would really help the business. And we also saw the challenges that, businesses and affiliation were facing. But when we got to the end and we achieved the goal, it was, the most amazing feeling. Because I think a lot of people internally had thought, it's probably not possible. Not because we weren't great at our jobs, or not because we didn't have the expertise, but also because to be able to hire that number of people, to have the people coming through the start of the process, you need 50, 100, 150, 200. And all of those are then calls that you need to have with the candidates beforehand. So yeah, it was a huge amount of work, but it's something, I'm immensely proud of.
I love that. Cordelia, your story is really truly inspiring, and all the hard work. But I can only imagine that transitioning from honestly any industry into iGaming can't be an easy one. So how did your previous experience help you with developing a career in HR for iGaming?
You know what? I think what I always try and say to people who are looking to move, not necessarily into iGaming, but maybe into any industry, if you've got the passion and if you've got the drive to learn, you can succeed. I had no gaming experience before I joined Catena, But what the hiring managers could see was a passion to join the business, a key symmetry, I guess, in the values of who they were and who I wanted to be, but also who I could be as a brand representative. And I think it's really important for people joining an industry to understand that no matter what level you go in, you're representing that company. You know, when you're out and about, when you're meeting clients, when you're out at networking drinks, when you're out with your friends, you're also representing the company that you work for or that you want to work for. And I think that that's something, you know, that's pretty important.
Yeah, I do agree. And changing the topic a tiny bit, one thing that many aspiring professionals wonder about is whether iGaming companies are even open to hiring people without prior experience in this sector, even though you might have like plenty of experience, you know, in previous industries. Based on your observations, how welcoming is this industry to professionals who bring skills from other fields?
So, look, I think it depends on the business. I think there are some businesses that are potentially more closed off. They see iGaming as kind of a subsector and a subculture. And I think the concern is that people coming from other industries that maybe they can't move into or adapt to the culture that is within gaming. I think it is possible within most roles, but I think that the person coming in has to be able to demonstrate that flexibility in their personality, in the way that they engage with people. You know, if we look at just a basic example, most iGaming businesses have quite flat hierarchies. Whereas if you look at maybe financial services, for example, historically, they have very large hierarchies. So within these flat hierarchies, you have a different way of communicating, perhaps, to how you would within financial services. So I think that what candidates moving from one industry into gaming need to be able to demonstrate is that they're able to flex and that they're able to shift to a potentially different work culture. And look, it's not easy. We hired many people, and I've hired people, you know, since I set up my business, who haven't come from gaming. They thought that they would love it, and they haven't been able to make it work. I think sometimes the fact that the industry is moving at such a fast pace, sometimes people don't realize how that will impact their workload. You may start a project, be 70% through the project, then it moves direction. That can be quite frustrating if you're not used to that way of working. And so I think that people also have to enter the industry with an open mind of the fact that, you know, it might not be that easy, and that also they're going to have to work at shifting their mindset too.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think people need to also understand that there's actually a lot of independence in the iGaming industry. And very often, you know, like you said, doing changes into the project 70% when you're 70% done, you need to understand it's not about you. It's about the project. It's never, you know, about your skills or not doing something right. You just need to be able to really adapt, because at the end of the day, it is business that we're talking about.
Yeah, and I think as well, you know, roles change, priorities change. For people moving into the industry, they have to be agile enough to realize that in 3 years or 5 years, it's likely that they will have probably moved on from that company. Of course, there are lots of people who've spent 10 years. An industry friend of mine just celebrated her 12-year anniversary. Amazing accolade. But that's quite rare in our industry. You know, 1 year, 3 year, 4 years, those are typical. And I think that people also then have to be prepared that, you know, moving roles every few years, that's quite tiring too. That takes a lot of effort. You're meeting new people, you're fitting into new work cultures. So to also be prepared to handle that flexibility as well is something that I think is important.
Yeah, I would like to stay on the topic of flexibility a little bit. Like, from your experience, what are some of the best ways that candidates can actually demonstrate their flexibility and ability to learn quickly during the hiring process in iGaming? Because, you know, it is so easy to put in your resume, I am able to learn quickly, but then you're suddenly facing a wall. Like, maybe there is too much to learn,
Yes.
but I think I can handle it. I just need to prove it.
Yeah. Great question. I think, look, what I would always say to potential job seekers, and I say this to my candidates too, who are moving maybe from gaming to gaming, is, we all have a responsibility to be constantly upskilling ourselves. So if in an interview process, you're able to demonstrate a new skill that you have learned, a new course that you've been on, if you're entering into the gaming industry, perhaps as a new graduate, as a recent job leaver, school leaver, I don't think it needs to be at such a high level, but it could also be a great book that you've read, a great article that you've read that you've managed to kind of bring to life. I think to be able to show that you've done some research on the business is really important. I think, look, what we see on LinkedIn is a lot of this kind of spray and pray approach. Candidates they fire their CV out to 100, 300 companies, and then, maybe they write a LinkedIn post about how nobody's bothered to get back in touch with them. I think the focus should be on more quality than quantity. It's about identifying a business that identifies with you. Maybe there's something really cool that business has done. Maybe they stand for a really cool CSR initiative that really speaks to you. And it's then about finding that person on LinkedIn if you can and reaching out to them. People really appreciate that personal touch. I think, gone are the days of sending an email to a generic careers at. It's also about trying to build that relationship with that person face to face in networking events if you can. Otherwise, the power of LinkedIn is just vast.
Yeah. And honestly, back in the day, I would, bulk send the applications when I was facing, job changes. But then I switched my approach a little bit, and I started to, like you said, to get a lot more, have a personal touch to everything.
Because I think also, as a job seeker, there's nothing more demoralizing than a no, but there's nothing even more demoralizing than just a silence. And if you're sending your CV out to 100, 300 companies and all you're getting is silence, you can't help but feel that it's a reflection on you. But maybe some of those companies that you're applying for, maybe they get 200 or 300 CVs in a week, in which case maybe it's impossible for them to be, the recruitment team to be physically going through the application. Or, now with AI, that the AI is filtering out your profile because it deems that you're not suitable when actually you probably are suitable for the role. And if I look back to me entering into the gaming industry, if my profile had gone through AI, I had the skills, but I didn't have relevant experience, I'm not sure if I would be where I am now. But it was by my persistence and I think sheer desire to work for a company that I saw as, such an influential business in Malta and such a great place to work with an amazing work culture. If I hadn't have really been on all of them, then I don't think I would be here, and probably not with you today either.
I absolutely agree. I actually have a similar experience with one of the companies. I saw their application and I thought, wow, this is my job. It has to be mine. So I did so much research about the company. I knew so many things. I started to look at the team members that I could potentially have. And, when I was invited to do the task, I spent a good couple of hours. I knew, maybe this is a bit too much. This is nothing for sure. It may not go through. But I was still so determined that I said, I'm going to spend even 10 hours on that task, but I'm going to do it the way that I would do it at this job. And, then I could lead the conversation, basically, because I knew what they were doing and they actually appreciated it, that they didn't have to explain for 20 minutes what the company did.
Yeah, and you know what? I think it goes such a long way that when a candidate, when somebody is going through an interview process, if they've done a little bit of research on, who the business is great, but who the person who they're meeting is kind of like the next step. And then some more about kind of the org chart and other people that would be around them. It's quite simple to run those searches on LinkedIn to be able to see, who might be in the team. That's cool. And, maybe on the hiring manager's CV, you see that they've traveled to somewhere and you happen to love traveling there, or they have a hobby and that's something that you're really interested in. These are all really great ways to be able to build that rapport. And I think that by going that extra mile, you're also showing that you're invested in the process. I think the worst impression you can give is you go to an interview and you've not even bothered to look at what the company does. I think it just shows that you have just sent your CV out to a lot of businesses, and actually, is that business going to be that invested in you if they then have to spend, like you said, 20 minutes kind of explaining, at a basic level what the company does?
Yeah, that is true. I would like to shift a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about transferable skills. So iGaming consists of so many various domains like technology, marketing, sales, customer service, anything. So which specific skills from other industries do you think are the most in demand and are beneficial for someone that wants to break into iGaming, like skills in data, digital marketing, customer service?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think it really depends. The market is evolving literally all of the time. Tech roles, of course, within any industry, super transferable and always needed. If we look at roles like AI developers, they're very niche, they're very new, they're very current, and those can also sit across any industry. I think that customer service is where a lot of people start, and also content have been where a lot of people, if we look over the years at where some of the really senior leaders within the gaming industry started, a lot of them started their careers there. When it comes to customer service, to be able to speak a language at a native level is probably the only thing that is really required, and to be able to communicate most likely online, written. Those are probably the key skills. But, a games presenter is also a great way to be able to start in the gaming industry. Of course, that's face-to-face, as in, virtually like this. So that doesn't necessarily suit everyone's skill set. But I think, yeah, customer service for sure. And also, historically content too.
Yeah. So I would like to dive into those roles, because not all of them, like you said, require direct experience
Yeah.
in the iGaming sector. Can we talk about some examples of positions where having a background from a different industry would be a very big advantage?
Yeah, sure. I think the kind of vertical that I would say probably shouts out to me first would be within finance. Those teams often really appreciate, and actually it makes sense for them to have people who come from outside the gaming industry. A number of people that I've hired have come from kind of ex financial services, and they've been extremely successful. I think that they bring a very structured way of working to potentially an environment that can be perceived as less structured, which actually can really suit the way of working. I think, look, most roles at a more junior level, they can be transferable. I think that it can sometimes feel like the industry is very closed and that they only take people from gaming, from iGaming. I don't think that's true. But I think that when you get to a certain level, to be able to have that industry experience, it is important. If you're managing a function, for example, it's probably important that you have a deep understanding of the industry. There are, of course, great courses out there that can teach you the basics. But I think that, yeah, it's probably more important at a more senior level that people have had that exposure to be able to then lead the teams.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the the long experience in the iGaming sector is very crucial when it comes to C-level. Although it is not like a rule.
Yeah.
If you have a wide network, you can make anything work, to be honest. But like you said, the junior positions, the regular positions, or any position in tech,
Yeah.
I think they can be easily,
Yes.
they can make it work in iGaming.
Yeah.
So I don't have many more questions to you, but I am so curious to hear your thoughts on networking, because
Yeah.
networking really plays a crucial role in finding opportunities. Like we were talking, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, even going
Yeah.
to events. And it's really crucial for finding opportunities and growing within any industry. But what about the importance of networking in iGaming?
Yeah. I say this loud, proud, and I'll shout it everywhere that I can. I was really lucky that I was given one of the top networking voices for LinkedIn. And I kind of used my platform to discuss the importance of networking. If anyone has any takeaways from our discussion, it should be the importance around it. The people that you meet will be the people that will be your colleagues, your managers, and your mentors. The best contacts I ever met were face to face. My first client I met in real life straight after I set up my business. My second in Dubai, and we're still working together now. Every single conference, networking event that people are able to attend, I think that they should. And look, I understand that for a lot of people, putting yourself out there and out of your comfort zone, it doesn't come naturally. Can I tell a secret? I don't think it comes naturally to anyone to begin with. I think you've really got to fake it till you make it. But I think that once you go to one, once you go to two, and you're able to kind of let your guard down a little bit, it's really important for people to see the person that you are. And so many job roles within iGaming are not necessarily advertised. They are through contacts, they are meeting people and chatting to people. And I think that that's the same whether you're working for a business or whether, like myself, I now have my own business.
Yeah, yeah. And I agree that people usually are not born with networking skills. I'm one of the best examples. When I just started my career many years ago, I joined a company that was running events, and my manager came to me and she said, "Well, Magda, you're going to be an MC on a stage."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I'm here in the company for 2 months. How am I going to know all this?" And at first I was petrified, but then as I was walking up the steps to the stage, everything got released. Like, I was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
And I thought, I am doing this for my job.
Yeah.
This is not personal. Those people don't know me. And I'm okay speaking with them.
Yeah.
So, even though I'm naturally like an introvert, I had to learn that, networking is how I'm going to stay at my job and develop my career. It's just how things are. And like you said, the events are so crucial. Just 2 weeks ago, I went to my first iGaming event, being in iGaming, which was Sigma in Malta. And at first, I was so petrified, like,
Yeah.
how am I going to talk to people? Who am I going to meet? I don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
But the moment I had the second conversation, it all became natural. At
Yeah,
some
and I
point, you
think
just
that's one of
know.
the things. Yeah, I think that's really important. And like, I'm really glad that you highlighted it. It's also, the more you think about it, the more you can kind of scare yourself into thinking that, everyone's going to realize that it's your first event and that, that maybe you'll present yourself in a way that you shouldn't. But it's not like that at all. I think, you've seen firsthand how welcoming and how nice, how friendly and how fun the industry is. There are so many people who are moving roles, moving companies, moving into the industry, moving out of the industry all of the time, that I think that people just want to help people make connections and help people meet and succeed. And, for anybody who approaches me on LinkedIn that I'm able to help either through my business or just to put them in touch with somebody, I'm always more than happy to. If I think back to my really early days working in agency recruitment, I had an amazing mentor and he stayed with me kind of throughout my career. We're still in touch now. And I'm really grateful to him for his kind of words of wisdom when things didn't necessarily go the way that I had hoped they would, or I would have, an offer rejected and it would kind of really hit me hard. He would always be there to be like, well, come on, this is going to toughen you up. This is how it's going to make you, stronger in business. And I think that for people joining the industry, find somebody online that inspires you, whoever it is, whether it's someone really senior, maybe it's a peer, maybe it's a colleague. Get in touch with them and just, it doesn't have to be a formal mentor-mentee arrangement, but by having somebody that you can chat to and by having somebody that maybe you can shadow at a networking event, that can also really help, because then you feel like you're not so much on your own.
I really couldn't have phrased it better. And I feel like you just read my mind. It doesn't have to be a mentor. It can be your teammate that has been in the industry, that has been going to events. Just ask them. Just ask them to be there next to you. Do this small introduction, then you can turn into an actual, conversation with the other person. But sometimes you just need this little bit of like push to start.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think thinking about it means that you can talk yourself out of doing it. But I think by making the commitment that you'll go, and maybe going to Sigma Malta with 27,000 people, maybe for a first show for someone just arriving, that could be quite overwhelming. But there are many other, in Malta, there are many networking meetup drinks, which are much more casual. You can kind of dip in, have a drink, and then leave. And I think that, those events might be great for people who are just, starting out, because it's less people, more intimate, but also the big shows, that's where you really connect with many people. And I think if I look back to people that I've met over the last couple of years, hundreds and hundreds when it comes to the conferences. And those people, for me, are candidates, clients, and potential clients.
Yeah, that is true. But, attending events is not the only way to do networking. Like we were talking about LinkedIn. What do you think about staying active, on LinkedIn, both by writing your own posts, but also responding? And what about the online communities? Like iGaming is big on Telegram, for example,
Yeah, I think, look, there is so much out there, it can become quite overwhelming and it can almost become a full-time job. I post a lot on LinkedIn because that's really where we find most of our candidates. I don't post any of my roles. It's all about headhunting, sourcing, and kind of reaching out to my network. So for me, that's my most important tool. Telegram is also really useful. I think, look, with the birth of AI, when it comes to an idea or a concept of something that you want to discuss, I think it's now made it much more user-friendly for people to be able to write blog posts. I think, again, it can seem quite scary when you're kind of putting pen to paper or finger to keyboard about what you want to write. But I think that by being able to demonstrate that you are a subject, I don't want to say expert because I think we're always all learning, but you have an interest in a particular topic, that can spark a lot of interest. I recently wrote an article for IGB Affiliate on manager versus leader, and a lot about what we need now in the iGaming industry. And a lot of people commented on that, and it was really great to be able to get people's thoughts. Likewise, I also did one on kind of mental health and iGaming companies' responsibility to that. And the feedback from that was phenomenal. So many people had different insights based on their own personal experiences and based on what they had experienced in work. And I think that that's a great way to be able to kind of showcase your insights by being able to say, look, these are my thoughts. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. And really, when we enter the industry, we really don't have to be, talking specifically about, I don't know, game providers, platforms, or so on. Speak about your own experience and how you transported it into iGaming. Like we were speaking a couple of minutes ago. You use the experience you already have, and find a link to iGaming and share it.
Yeah, and I think it can even be you come across a situation in work and maybe you handled it this way and maybe your colleagues thought it should be handled this way. It's a great way to say to LinkedIn, hey, if you were in this situation, what would you do? And I think there's always so many really interesting conversations on LinkedIn happening all of the time. It's just sometimes hard to be able to kind of put my laptop away. So I try to not enter into too many of them. Otherwise, that would literally be my full working day.
That is true. Cordelia, I'm not going to take much more of your time, just a couple more questions.
Sure.
So thank you for all those insights, and they are really invaluable. I'm convinced the viewers or listeners will be able to put your advice into action right away. One question I have for you, if you could talk to yourself from a few years ago, back when you were starting, what advice would you give yourself regarding starting a career in iGaming?
I think the advice I would give is to be brave, be confident, own your experience, and also be prepared for your career to develop and change in many different ways, and to kind of roll with it. I think I mentioned this at the start of our discussion. You know, sometimes doors close and sometimes we have to move on from places we've been really happy in, or maybe we move to a new role and it isn't quite what we expected that it would be or that it should be. You know, the industry is super dynamic and things are changing so often that sometimes this is the case. I mean, it's reflected within many industries, not just iGaming. And I think that by being able to be perseverant, by being able to persevere and also be resilient, we're able to kind of demonstrate that. And I think that those would probably be the biggest things that I would kind of say to myself around being, confident, owning my experience, but also kind of realizing the importance around upskilling and around networking. I've always seen that as something which is really important, but in the last few years, it's been something which has really kind of heightened in my awareness.
I love that. And you know, there's always an opportunity in front of you.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need to dig a little deeper. You know, you have to use your own network, ask
Yes.
for people for help. Don't be afraid to ask for help. So many
100%.
people are petrified. They think they will be judged for this,
Yeah.
which is almost never a case.
Yeah, and I think that's such a really important thing that you mentioned, that there are always people out there who want to help, whether it's the name of a contact at a company that somebody wants to work for. I have a friend messaging me about a business. Do I think that they should join? What do I know about the company? There's always advice that people can give. But I think we're all so busy all of the time that sometimes we can forget that there are people out there who might need or want our advice. And I always say, you know, my door on LinkedIn is always open for people who are looking for advice, be it career advice or be it just general kind of work advice, CV advice, you know, to always get in touch with myself or the team. We're you know, always very happy to be able to help.
That is true. Cordelia, do we have time for questions?
Sure.
Because I just noticed there are a couple of questions
Yeah, I
that we
just saw a
have.
couple too.
I'm going to start with one from LinkedIn.
Yep.
How do you encourage non-iGaming people to work in our industry? Because it might seem as gambling, casino, betting from the outside,
Yeah.
not like building rockets or finding a cure for a disease. I wonder if it is a blocker for recruiters. So encouraging
Yeah, I
non-iGaming
think
people.
that this is a great question. I think it comes down to the way that a business is, I don't want to say sold, because as a recruiter, our role isn't to sell a business to a candidate, but it's to matchmake between the candidate and the business. I think that it's really important that the candidate has visibility on the verticals that the iGaming business operates within, but also that they have an understanding of, you know, where the business is headed and what the focus for the company is. I think that, look, from the outside, when you look at like iGaming, oh, it's, you know, online casino, sportsbook. I think that sometimes that can seem a bit daunting. And as the message mentioned, that, you know, we're not saving lives, we're not building rockets. But I think that by explaining that the environment is super dynamic, there's a lot of opportunities. If we look at the speed by which some people are promoted and in senior leadership positions, that's pretty rare outside of our industry. You know, you have people who have maybe 5 years experience heading up huge gaming businesses. I think within, you know, financial services, if we take it as a historical, you know, a very old industry, we don't see that there. Maybe people 20, 30, 40, 50 years of experience, they would be in those roles. So I think that for hard-working, dynamic people, the iGaming industry can offer a huge amount.
That is true. I found one more question that refers to applying.
Yeah.
And can we touch the topic that a recruiter doesn't even open the application? How to pass that blocker? That's a very good question.
Yeah, it is. And look, I think that what we've seen in the last couple of years with a lot of redundancies, businesses shifting focus and larger companies either being bought out, acquired, or downscaling, we've seen a huge increase in the number of candidates that are on the market. What I would say to people, if you're really interested in a role that has been advertised on LinkedIn, try and contact that recruiter directly instead of just emailing them. If you're not getting anywhere, then see if there's another recruiter on the team. See if there's a head of HR that you can get in touch with. The worst thing with that kind of perseverance is that you'll be seen as a little bit annoying. But if you're sure that it's the role for you and it's something that you're really interested in, then I would say that it's important to kind of really push your application out there, because I also know from the other side how much pressure recruitment teams are often under, and the number of roles, they could be working on anything from 10, 15, 25 roles at any point. And that could be covering a number of key verticals. They could be working across tech, finance, product, and all of the hiring managers internally are explaining that their role is extremely urgent, and then that role needs to take priority. So I think that that's probably, to really try and find a relevant person. Or, the hope is that at a networking event, you maybe bump into one of those people, and you're then able to say like, hi, I saw the role that you're recruiting for. I'm really interested in it. Do you have kind of 5 minutes?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, you said the worst thing that can happen. How annoying is that? Recruiters have so many other things that they will not be bothered by this for very long. And
No.
at least you'll get your message out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, look, there's that kind of age-old saying, you've got to go for what you really want. And I think that, our industry is quite saturated with good candidates. There are a lot of good candidates on the market at the moment because of the changes. And I think gone are the days of you just send an application and then that company gets back in touch straight away. I think that it's now kind of on the company side that they have, I would say, more of the power. They have a lot of candidates applying for maybe one role. And, I've seen in processes 4 or 5 A-star candidates, absolute rock stars, all at the same final stage. Over the last 4 or 5 years, it wasn't like that. When I started my gaming career, you would have, of course, rock stars in final stage processes, but to have so much choice. And I think that this also comes down to, the world of remote working has opened up the world. Whereas before, if you're recruiting just in Malta, for example, you would be looking for candidates who are physically based there. It's a smaller pool. If you open it up to the world, there's a billion more possibilities.
Yeah, I really agree. And before we wrap up this session, Cordelia, can you please tell us how can people reach out to you regarding their career if they want to discuss this topic further?
Sure. So I'd invite anyone to drop me a message on LinkedIn, to please feel free to comment on our discussion afterwards. I'll be attending, a number of key networking events next year. My first in the diary will be a Sigma Dubai. So if anyone's attending there, I would love to see them. I think, look, the industry is a really important one. It's growing all of the time. But any help that I can give to new people starting out, I would love to, because I know that I had a lot of help when I was first joining. And that's really what kind of led me to where I am today.
That is amazing. So, Dubai.
Yes.
Cordelia, thank you so much for your time and all the insights you shared with us. I'm so grateful you joined this session.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank everyone who has been listening and watching us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
If you'd like to get in touch with Cordelia, don't hesitate to reach out on LinkedIn or through CMC Consulting, or find her in Dubai.
Yeah.
I'd like to also thank our sponsor, eSematic, for making this session possible. And I will see you all at the next Ace Alliance Insights episode. Have a great day.
Everyone, take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.